circular effect. Does it work? Unbelievably. Is it tough to get kids to do it or anybody do it? Unbelievably hard. I put signs in the back. I put bullet boards in the corners. I have 8 people on the court, so when a kid misses the shot, they have to drop out. And when they drop out, instead of standing here wondering about what they did wrong, they look at the board and they read the corrective methodology. And they just look at it and they read it. Then they come back in. They don't drop out because it's a penalty. They drop out because they need time to go through the thought process. One of the great deterrents to progress today on the court is having so many balls fed and so many balls fed time after time after time after time. Why? We don't play that way. Where we lose the matches is in between the points because we don't have the right thought process. If we don't create the time to have the right thought process and then have the right thought process, we've accomplished nothing. We have not worked on the mental game. Just like sports specificity that I think people don't go through in order to do the things that are appropriate to tennis courts when they're practicing or physically, I think there's also the statement regarding concentration. We talk about concentration. We know it's a physically demanding game, and we know the more emotional static you have, the less deductive reasoning you go through. And you're never going to. Why do people plateau at a lower level? Because they got garbage going through their mind. And the body is doing what it needs to in order to deal with that mind. So you have to learn how to manage the mental part. I can't do the tactics with that head work until what? Until I manage my emotions so that I have them under control and I can think like a logical person. I don't know. Anybody coached here at a college level? College level? High school level? Okay. I've coached at a college level, high school level, the whole bit. I want to tell you something. They talk about being able to coach at a college level. You can coach during the points and everything like that. You sit on the bench at a court in a college level match, kids that you haven't trained and haven't seen trained before, and they come over to you after losing a game, dropping a game that was an important game, and there's no talk. You're looking in the eyes of a madman. I mean, they're absolutely insane. I mean, they're ready to jump from a high building because they have not been trained how to use the most valuable thing that they have on the face of the earth. It's not their hand and it's not their feet. It's right up here. That's what wins matches. I make one statement to my kids, and that is they can do everything. They can work on their fitness, their nutrition. They can do 10 times more than anybody else. But remember something, that you will be the product of what goes through your mind after every point you lose. Let me say that again. You will be the product of what goes through your mind after every point you lose. So you can work as hard as you want, but in a year you're going to be making the same mistakes if you don't solve the problem and make the corrections. They don't self-correct. They become repetitive, and those become your habits. Oh, I knew I was going to double fault on that point. I always do that. Oh, my heavens. I mean, is that imbecilic? That's the most absurd step. Why did you serve then? You know, there's no reason to do that. But I think is this discipline? This is discipline. This is regimented. This takes obsessiveness, and it's the toughest thing in the world. But I want to tell you, when the kids do it at various levels, and they accomplish it, and adults do it at the various levels and accomplish it, you are in the greatest profession on the face of the earth. And that's the way it should be. It's the way it should be. Chris?
We saw Andy's emotions getting his way, and he gets better in the Open.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah, it's the first time I've really seen him blow it.
Yep. And it happens at every level. And, you know, he'll come back. He'll do what he needs to. But, you know, there's so much stuff about fitness and nutrition and entourage of coaches and everything like that. Really what it comes down, what have we covered here? Basics. Fundamentals. Fundamentals that are a hole in the dike, in the dam. And, you know, you can have the Queen Mary, the Queen Elizabeth out there at sea. They got one little hole in the bottom of that boat, and it's just a matter of time before it sinks. One little hole. That's the foundation. You can't do it without the foundation. So rather than to get into all the high-tech things and things like that, I like to go back to the basics. I'm really a basic guy. But I think there are basics that need to be stressed and learned and solidified. if we can do it.
What do you speak about what to do after you win a point? Because I would.
That's another lecture. That's another lecture. Great question, actually, because remember, see, I'm taking that which I have control over right now, the unforced errors. There's a 30-30-40 principle in that book. It says 30-30-40. You know what the 30-30-40 principle is? If two players are competitively equal at any level, from what I've seen, and on most surfaces, if they're competitively equal, which means that they're going to go tooth and nail 10 times, one of them could win 5 times, the other one could win 5 times. If they're competitively equal and they play, then each of them is going to come out with a maximum, absolutely, this is a very lenient term, maximum of 25 to 30% winners or forcing shots. Example, Bruce and I are, no, we can't.
You said equal players.
Yeah, okay.
Me and Ed.
Let's see, yeah, okay, you and Ed. Okay.
We played doubles the other day.
You and Ed play doubles. Okay. If Bruce comes out here and plays the best match he's ever played before, he's going to make a maximum of 30% winners or forcing shots. That's good. Feels good about that. But the problem is, if Ed's a competitively equal, and he's going to come out here and play the best he can play at that particular day, they're both playing extremely well, he's going to make 30% winners or forcing shots. Now, that leaves 40%. What's the 40% decided by? Unforced errors. Not errors, but unforced errors. See? Ones that you had control over, that you had a decision to make. And had you been trained, there are not talented athletes or tennis players, and they're not good or bad tennis players. There are only well-trained tennis players and poorly trained tennis players. And you know who's responsible for that? We are. Well-trained and poorly trained. So if those people are not doing the job out on the court, it's not because they're deaf, it's not because they're not motivated as far as I'm concerned, it's because we're not doing the job. We need to find another way to do it, and a better way to do it. And I'm hoping that some of this will help you do that job as well. This has worked for me. It's worked for me over 20 years. And it's taken players from this level up to playing pros. And it's very gratifying to see that happen. But the common link with all of them is how disciplined they are to go through the thought process in between the points. They have to they have to correct the problem and then clear their mind. And if they can do that, then in a year, 12 months, they're no longer going to make that error quite as much. Will they ever get rid of it? No, they will never get rid of it because we're human beings and we are susceptible to error. But they won't be making it as much and they won't be doing it repetitively the same way. So what I'd like to do now is, if we could, let's head on over to the court. I know it's still going to be warm, and I think the sun's setting. What we're going to do now on court is try to demonstrate and incorporate and implement some of the things we went through in the classroom. And one of them is going to be the progressions that we go through with players. I've got several drills set up, and Bruce and Ricardo are going to help me perform these. And notice the first thing that we do is we set up the targets. Now, when we start off, I'm going to start off at what I call the intermediate level, which means that both these players have control. And as I said before, my objective is for them to set up their margins as they're doing it. So Ricardo is going to be in the middle of the court right here, right in between the two targets, and Bruce is in that position over there. Now, what I'm going to ask them to do in a warm-up practice is an interesting concept, because basically all I want them to do is work on the concepts that we already established. Every time we do a drill, the drill is only good if we abide by the habits that we're trying to form. Remember, the drill session is mainly because we have a high degree of repetition in a short period of time. So that gives us an opportunity to make sure that we're solidifying those habits at a more rapid rate. So the first drill that I like to do with Bruce and with Ricardo is going to be to keep the ball high, don't move the feet, and they're going for 10 consecutive volleys back and forth to each other. 10 consecutive volleys. And at the end of 10, we'll stop them at that point. But basically all they're trying to do is keep the margin 3 feet over the net. They're reestablishing that one, watching the ball, emphasizing the follow-through, height over the net, and the target they're going for is going to be their shoe tops. Their shoe tops, because I don't want either of them to move. So if Ricardo has to move to reach the ball, then that means that Bruce was inaccurate and inconsistent. Vice versa, if Ricardo makes Bruce move, then he was inaccurate and consistent on that. Inconsistent. Okay, here we go. 1, 2. And I'll have my players go ahead and count off I want them to quantify and evaluate each time. Now, they could be using a two-handed volley, they could be using a forehand grip, depending on the level that they're playing. I'm not going to worry about the grip until they start to miss the shots. But notice all they're doing is going for 10 consecutive shots in the row. Okay, once they get 10, I'm going to ask them to move back a step, make it a little bit tougher. Still not moving the feet. Now, some people will say, well, you know, that's not the way I was taught to volley. I was taught to take that step in and volley from that position with one step into the ball. Well, you've got to understand again that I think there are 3 or 4 very valuable mobility patterns. One of them is not at all. I'm a great believer that both on volleys and ground strokes, most players move more than they have to when they don't need to, and don't move enough when they need to, because they only learn that one-step pattern. Whereas right now, their target is each other. They're cooperating, keeping the ball high, and making sure that they're getting the consistency and the accuracy. Now remember again what we're working on. We are not working on technique. The technique should be actually implemented as is necessary to accomplish this goal. But if they're accomplishing that goal, I don't touch them. They're doing fine. If they can make the shot with the butt end of the racket, they can go ahead and do it. But if they don't, then we'll start talking technique. Now the techniques that I do like to incorporate at this level are going to be the continental grip, and I'll find that continental by just pushing that racket off my right shoulder, my hitting shoulder, put the hand down on the top of that racket, and that's a no-change grip. It is biased toward the backhand, and I think that's important because if we hit a random number of volleys to each other, 2/3 of those shots should be hit with a backhand. Because everything to the left side of my body, if I'm right-handed, everything up to and including my right hip, should be hit with a backhand. The only time I'm going to hit my forehand is when it's off my right hip. So basically, they're working on continental grip from this position, standing position, keeping the ball low to the shoe tops. Let's try it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nope, had to move. Had to move. Now that actually wasn't Ricardo's fault. Now notice what we do. We make a correction. The correction we make when they miss the shot is they move closer together. Why? It's an easier shot to make closer together. So we're not going to settle into a frustrating situation. We're going to make the correction right away. When they can get 10 shots from this position, then they'll move back a little bit again. Good. One step back, moving back. Our goal is to get both players to the service line, being able to hit that ball with consistency and accurate 10 times without moving the feet. Good. Excellent. Now, I have my students do this in different incremental groups. In other words, age groups. If my children are 7 or 8 on one court, they may be down on the first court there. They're doing the same thing. But basically, they may be choking up on the racket. They may be standing in a little bit closer to each other. I may not even have them across the net from each other. They may be doing it side to side. But they're getting used to the same orientation that I want that volley going 10 times in a row. I'm not looking at an offensive volley. I'm looking for a defensive, consistent volley in this situation. When they do this, Bruce and Ricardo also are starting to develop some good racket manipulation because they're not able to move into position, just hit it the same way every time. I have a tremendous aversion to teaching people how to volley with one step and stepping in and going for the volley in this position. Why? Because from the intermediate levels on up to the advanced levels of play, you're going to get this volley about 1 out of 17 times. You're going to get this one about 1 out of 15 times. That's a totally impractical volley to learn. It doesn't happen. What happens is the ball is going to be high, it's going to be low, it's going to be in this position. When they pick up the speed, they will not have time to move their feet. So therefore, they're solidifying their feet in this position. Do I want them to learn only this volley? No. This is just one footwork pattern. Now, from this position also, let's go back to the in between the cones again. I want both of you to mark time. Don't stop your feet, don't break stride, and keep the volley going 10 times. Marking time. Feet moving, feet moving, feet moving. Don't try to position your feet. Don't try to position your feet. Just keep the feet going up and down, up and down. Now what are they doing now? They're starting to condition themselves to keep the control while they're moving. Because not only are they going to have to hit it from a standing position, they're also going to have to hit it while their feet are moving. So they're doing this in an artificial position right here. Not again exclusive to anything else, but very definitely for control. Now, what I want to do when I start off with my drills is I start off with zones on the court, and the first zone that I'm going to do is to work on my consistency and accuracy from a standing position and then from a moving position. So this time I'm going to go ahead, put the cone outside the yellow target, and we're going to do a much more difficult drill. The drill this time is Ricardo is going to go cross court on every shot. And when I say cross court, Ricardo, your objective is to hit the red cone. Hit it between the red cone and the yellow cone. The red cone and the yellow area. Bruce is going to go down the line on his shots. Ricardo is going cross court on his shots. What is this doing? This is
Move the basket.
a tremendous amount of mobility to a relatively simple drill.
I think what you'll see also as we go through these drills, obviously if the coach isn't talking that much, but people always talk about warming up. And we talked about the mental warming up, we talk about the physical warming up and the different phases. As we go through these drills, there's no wasted time warming up where one guy's standing on the baseline, the other guy's standing on the baseline. We hit one or two balls, we miss into the net, we pick them up, we start again. We've been out here for 10 minutes, we're not going. We go through this progression, we're developing consistency, that's what we started with. We also had accuracy, that was the other person. Now we've put in mobility, which as we said before is our ability to maintain consistency and accuracy under varying levels of mobile duress. So by the time we get through 5 minutes, we're both soaking wet with sweat, we're completely physically warmed up, and we continue to reinforce the habits that we've been trying to develop based on the systematic thinking and the methodology that we're using to develop the mental skills. You ready? You're going cross court. I'm down the line. Here we go. Come on, get it over.
Wider, wider, make him move, that's it. Pull them wide, that's it, looking good. Now if they hit that ball any harder than that, they will not be able to get back into position for the next shot. Looking good, looking good. Excellent. That's what I want, keep it under control. This is an extremely difficult drill, it's a tremendous conditioner with what they're doing. Okay, hold it up, very nice, very nice. Let's switch directions now. Bruce, you go cross court, Ricardo's going down the line. Okay, now I want you to watch several things with Bruce because there are 3 habit patterns that I introduce at this stage of development that I think have great ramifications for the improvement of a player over a period of time long term. The three habit patterns that we're introducing here are 3 physical habit patterns. One is Bruce is taking an extra step beyond the ball each time. If he's going cross court, he needs to get his body and his hip on the outside of the ball to be able to get that angle coming back. If he's stretched out like this and he's just barely reaching it, he's going to be forced to go down the line with a continental grip. So the first thing that I'm saying to him is, Bruce, I want to see that extra step after each shot. Now watch, he'll hit it in stride and take the extra step. Plants on the anchor, step on the outside, and come back into position on the next one. Okay, going cross court. Here we go. Huh? No. Watching the feet. Watch his feet now. Extra step through it, extra step through it, extra step through it, extra step through it, extra step through it. Good, Bruce. Hold it. Good, Ricardo. Now, I want to show you the difference because most people who have learned the volley, the typical standard quote-unquote classical volley, have learned to take a step into it, stop, and hit the shot. If Bruce does that on a wider ball like this, watch what it looks like. Here we go. Same thing. You're going cross court, Bruce. Don't take the extra step. He's not going to get back. He's going to lose some of his going cross. Here we go. Okay? Good. Going back. Pull him wide. That's it. So he's going to be off balance. He's stretched out, and it's tougher for him to come back cross court. So just with an addition and a change in his mobility, he starts to increase his limitations on this shot and becomes less predictable. Let's do it the proper way again, Bruce. Extra step through the ball. Moving through it, good. Moving through it, good. Accelerating through it, that's it. And it actually is an acceleration through it. It's exactly what I want. Good, Bruce. Hold it up. Good, Ricardo. Now, the advantage to this is he stays on balance and he uses that outside leg as an anchor step to efficiently come back into position after he stayed on balance. If he doesn't do that, he probably should have to go down the line because he's going to be stretched out too much. So that's the first physical habit. And I call this habits that you will incorporate or implement in order to go from the intermediate level to the advanced levels of play. There are 3 of them. One is the acceleration through the ball, 1 extra step. The second one is a change of grip. Bruce this time is going to go cross court again, and he's going to purposely and methodically change his grip to the opposite grip when he hits the ball so that he can get the angle and the height to go back cross court on the shots. This time don't watch his feet, watch his racket hand.
Forehand volley and Eastern backhand grip, backhand volley and Eastern forehand grip, or if I'm really diving wide, full Western.
Now remember, we started off with the continental grip when the ball was within his radius of effectiveness. This is beyond his radius of effectiveness to bring it back cross court. So now he needs to make that adjustment in order to make the shot. Watch his grip. He's in a forehand grip. He's in a backhand grip. He's in a forehand grip. He's in a backhand grip. Good hustle. Way to make him work, Ricardo. That's good. That's good. Now, people will say, well, I don't have time to do that. Sure you do have time to do that. If you have time to take a step, you've got plenty of time to change the grip. Do the top players do it? Yes. Have players been taught this? No. Why? I don't know. Yes, Dave.
You do the same thing high and low. So in other words, if you hit
Yes.
the ball to somebody's
Yes.
ankles,
Yeah.
that's how I correct.
Yes.
Right. There are three times that basically Bruce will change his grip. One is on an extremely low ball, one is on an extremely wide ball, and the other one is on a high ball as well. Now we'll do that this time. Ricardo, let me feed some balls to Bruce just for a second. Watch him. Now I'm going to have Bruce start off on the service line, and he's going to move forward. This is a tough drill. A conditioner, as I said before, but also he's working on accelerating through the ball coming forward this time and accelerating on the ball going backward. And I'm going to do the feeding instead of just moving for the ball. So he's going sharp angle cross court for the forehand, going sharp angle cross court for the backhand.
It's important to see that it doesn't matter that we're doing this in this half a court, because all I'm doing is conditioning to targets.
Right.
If we switch this later and I'm in the middle of the court, I'm still going to targets.
Right.
So it doesn't matter what's going on as long as I'm conditioned to targets.
Back to the service line. Okay, here we go. Moving in. Close. That's it. Tight. Up high. Good. Back in. Up high. Again. Sorry, Bruce. When you get my age, you can feed me. Here we go. Moving in. Tight. Good. Up high. Good. Moving in. And moving in. Now there will be more points won at the net with that motion than there ever will be with the standard volley motion. And that's the important thing, is we're working on the variation. The reason people can't play the net today is because they don't have the skills. They come out and they learn a beginning skill like this from day one, and this is the way they try to volley the rest of their lives. They think if they're not in position to be able to do this, obviously they can't volley. When in reality, at the advanced levels of play, the average or the normal volley is boom, out here, coming back, going over here, reaching for that ball. And it's just a relative concept. Can volleyers emerge again? Oh, yes. Will they? Absolutely. And not because I'm teaching that, but because the other players are becoming so proficient in other areas of the court that they're going to have to come to the net to do it. The women are already doing it. Look at how many of them are coming to the net. Approach shot, serve and volley, and so forth. Why? Because they can't beat each other from the backcourt. So they're getting smart. I mean, did you ever see a worse volleyer than Demencheva? Up there volleying like this. Finals of the semifinals of the U.S. Open against Capriati. Wins the points up there. Why? Because nobody's used to coming to the net against the girls. Consequently, they look like $1 million from the backcourt going all the way through. Question?
Is it acceptable to